Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be here and glad to join you all this afternoon, and hope you had a wonderful, wonderful lunch, and you're still alive and alert and awake. And we're going to do a little bit of movement now and in just a little bit. So hopefully I'll be able to keep you awake to some extent. Appreciate that introduction, but just wanted to give you just a little bit more background about how I came to be involved with disability and have a lot of interests in healthful mobility beyond my dance-related background, which is very heavily in performance and choreography. After I graduated with my graduate degree, I began working with a mixed ability dance company, individuals with MS, cerebral palsy, different kinds of, sometimes other kinds of limitations, or what we perceive as limitations. And it was always my interest to, just in the dance population that I worked with, to make sure that dancers were dancing healthfully. So we have a lot of injured dancers, we have a lot of dancers who don't take care of their bodies properly and then burn out at early ages. So I was always concerned with and interested in dance medicine and dance science, and that was really a big interest of mine. I started doing a second degree in the sciences, and I'm still kind of following that path. So wanted to just give you a little bit of research background on what I've discovered is out there and happening in terms of dance and dance benefits, particularly for Parkinson's. I've only done a little bit of work with a Parkinson's support group. I'd be open to doing more, and certainly it is definitely an area of interest for me. But I thought I could at least bring to you my movement expertise and try to give you maybe some ideas, something you can do, some things you might be able to do on your own, and just share with you again the research that's kind of out there. So the National Parkinson's Foundation recommends put on some upbeat music and dance. That's wonderful suggestion. And just in terms of research, one study has shown that habitual participation in social dancing over several years is associated with superior balance, postural stability, gait function, and leg reaction times compared to age-matched non-dancers. So this in particular was a study that involved social dancing, and in particular was, I believe, waltz, foxtrot, and tango. So traditional exercise programs, we kind of know the benefits of exercise, and we should all be staying mobile as we can. But in terms of dance, dance tends to incorporate constant physical challenges while being enjoyable and engaging. So just a little bit of a difference there. And really, dance is all about communication. It's all about, it isn't just about the functionality of movement, going and getting a cup and drinking and things like that, going and just doing daily tasks, but it's much more about communication, and we communicate through movements. We're physical beings that the only way that we relate to the environment and to each other is through our movement and our movement initiations. We hug, we hold hands, our greetings to each other, our hellos, goodbyes are all emotional communication through the language of our body. So really that's all what dance is about. So it's very much tied into a personality, and it's tied into emotional expression, much more beyond just this idea of let's just make sure that the legs are mobile or the arms are mobile. It really goes beyond that, and that's how I see dance as being very key and important in terms of its movement benefits. So a couple things I'd like to try with you just for fun. One of the things that dance does is sort of engage that sense of play and playfulness and creativity, which we sometimes forget as adults that we still are creative people. Sort of start to lose some of that in the structure and the restriction of society. What I'd like you to do is, if you could turn to a partner and, actually, not yet. Let's do that in a minute. Thinking about your daily kind of movement habits. I know you may not think that you dance and that you dance every day, but in fact you do dance every day. It's my contention that people are dancing all the time and they don't realize it. And just because I have a very, very sort of broad view of dance, and then what makes pedestrian movement dance is just the fact that we turn it into rhythm, and then we add some spatial ranges, and we add transitions and things like that make it sort of feel more dance-like. So if you take some daily movement that you do, probably one of the first things you did this morning was turn off the alarm. So as our first movement, we're going to take this idea of turning off an alarm. And so we're just going to take this movement here, very simple, just that movement. That's our first movement, is turning off an alarm. And our second movement, you probably got out of bed at some point and managed to take some steps to your next destination. So we're going to just say that we took 3 steps. And so our first movement is turning off the alarm, and our second movement, just sitting at your chairs, can be just 3 steps in place. So we had our first movement, which is 1, and our second one, which is 1, 2, 3 steps. So we have 2 movements. And we're going to add a third movement, which is putting on clothes. And so we're just going to think about maybe pulling on pants as our third movement. So we have our first movement, which is turning off the alarm, doing that all together, and we are walking 3 steps, and we are then pulling on pants. Yeah, and for our fourth movement, we're going to say that we opened a door of some kind, right? You probably went out the door at some point to get to your car. So we're going to say that we just opened the door. And we're going to do that with our left hand, so we're using the right hand before. So we are turning off an alarm. We are walking for 3 steps. We are then pulling on pants, and we are then opening a door. For our last movement, we'll say, well, our almost last movement, we'll say that we get into the car, and we put on a seatbelt, and then we drive. So we say we're going to put on a seatbelt, and then we are driving. So our first movement was, again, turning off an alarm. Our second movement was walking for 3 steps. Our third movement was putting on clothes. We're then opening the door. We're then getting into the car, putting the seatbelt on, and we are driving. You know, it's really hard to do this with the microphone. This is something I hadn't really figured out the coordination of, but I should be able to do it. So we just do that movement sequence all together again, and then I'm going to ask you to, we're going to add a kind of a different rhythm to it. So the first thing was we were turning off the alarm. The second thing is we are taking 3 steps. We are pulling on pants. We are opening the door. We are putting on the seatbelt, and we are sitting down and driving, and however you drive, right? If you drive, you know, whatever, one hand or 2 hands or however you do it. So now I'm going to ask you to put that in a waltz rhythm, which is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? So we're going to go like this. We're going to have this turning off the alarm, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, driving. Yeah, so we're going to take that back and put that into waltz again and do that again. And y'all did pretty well with that. So here we're going, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, pants, 2, 3, open the door, 2, 3, sit, seatbelt, 2, 3, drive, 2, 3. Not bad. That was pretty good, you guys. Good. So just to kind of show you how, and it even happened earlier today when we added the Saints Are Marching In we were just marching in place, and then we added the song to it. It seemed like everyone kind of was able to kind of keep the beat a little bit better and added some energy and things like that. So if you can just add a little bit of a rhythm, you know, with cha-cha, rock step, triple step, or some sort of, you know, waltz, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 kind of feeling, or whatever it is that kind of gets your rhythm going, it helps smooth the transitions out in terms of your movement. Now what I'd like you to do is face a partner of some kind. And we're going to do a little mirroring activity. So this is something that you might, in an intervention, someone might do in a dance improvisation class, or they might do even in a regular dance class, this kind of mirroring activity. And the person in front of you is going to do is they're going to just take their hand and they're just going to move their hand in different directions, and you're just their mirror, and so you are following exactly what they do. So you're just exactly following wherever, so if they're going up or down, or side, or wherever it is that the hand goes, you are exactly following and just replicating that. So if you could try that with a partner, this mirroring activity, following the hand. And you want to try to stay as close as possible to their movement. Good, there's lots of laughter occurring, that's a good sign. So then switch leader follower, so switch to the other person, so now the other person is the leader, and the other one is the follower. You can see how that works. Right, just different spatial ranges, whether it's side to side, or going up and down, or circling, following that. You can use 2 hands if you'd like. you guys doing a hand job over there? I thought you were. That's nice. That's nice. All sorts of craziness going on. This is good. Good, and relax. And relax. Although you seem pretty relaxed anyway, but it's good. Good. So the nice thing about dance improvisation, I actually have been teaching dance improvisation for about 12 years, and with all different kinds of populations, different individuals with different kinds of mobility limitations and what you perceive as non-limitations. And what's fun about it is it really gets the person to be in charge of their own creativity and their own movement, so that it's not me just dictating movement to you. So in some classes or some dance classes that you would go to, it's very formal. You're just learning from that person, and you're not really the initiator of anything. So it's very beneficial to actually be the kind of to have a lot of ownership and engagement in terms of what your body's actually doing, and not always having that dictated to you. So this next exercise is even just a little bit more animated and playful. You're going to face your partner, and this time you're still doing a mirroring exercise with them, but this time you're making faces at them. So instead of it being hands, you're just whatever your face does, whether it's eyebrows raised or mouth or whatever it is, your partner's absolutely following you in this face dance. So you are mirroring your partner as they make interesting faces and facial expressions at you. And then switch so the other person gets to lead. And relax. Good. So if you've not ever done that with a friend or a partner, something to do at random, just for the fun of it, is make funny faces, especially if you don't have any energy. And you need some energy. Just make some funny faces friends and have them mirror you and enjoy that little face dance. No, but in all seriousness, just in terms of enlivening, we were talking earlier about the nature of what happens with Parkinson's is sometimes the face and the movement there, and so enlivening the facial expression being actually important. And also, we do this with actors and dancers. So this is again an exercise that we do to actually wake up eyes and wake up all of that, those expressive features of the face. So it ends up becoming important. What I'd like you to do next is one of the things that happens with Parkinson's is the cessation of movement and that inability to initiate movement on different parts. So I wanted to play around a little bit with you with an exercise where you're going to initiate movement from different parts of your body, and I'll tell you what part of the body is initiating. So what I'd like you to play with first is shoulders, and this is just however you want to think about the shoulder kind of leading through the space, and it can be both shoulders, it can be one shoulder. You can think about taking the shoulder up or out or forward or back or circling it around. So just playing around with shoulder movements, kind of mobilizing the shoulder girdle, shoulder movements, and where that can kind of go in the space. And so that if the shoulder in fact was leading your movement, how would that possibly move you through the space? If it was a navigator, how would it move you? So shoulders. And then try rib cage. So now trying the rib cage. If someone put a little string on the rib cage and wanted to pull you around with that, how could the rib cage move? So it can move forward, right? It can move back, move side, right? How can the rib cage move? So just playing around with that mobilizing of the rib cage. Right, side, forward, back, forward, around. Moving to the rib cage, right? We do a lot of this kind of stuff in jazz, a lot of isolations of body parts, so you can find that kind of mobility. Rib cage. And the last last thing, just hand. Again, the hand. If the hand is the mobilizer of the space, where can the hand really take you in the space? Down, up, around, can it circle? How can it change speeds? Maybe fast, maybe slow, maybe float, maybe cut, maybe slice, right? Ripple, flow, float, right? Playing with maybe qualities of like how that can kind of move for you. Right, punch, right? You can play with more force. So it's interesting because in terms of movement, again, a lot of times we say, oh, well, you just need to get from point A to point B, or you just need to lift your arm. But in dance, it's all about how you lift your arm. It's all about the quality. Because if I do this kind of movement to you, it communicates something very, very differently than if I do this movement kind of to you, or I do a slicing kind of movement, or has a lot more percussiveness or something like that to it. So for dance, it's all about the nuance of the quality. So we do play with all of those textures of movement so that you get a little bit clearer. You can play around with that kind of movement detail, which is something that, again, gets lost with Parkinson's, is this kind of like clarity of where and how exactly is my body, or can my body move, and how can it find a way to kind of renew those connections. So I'd like to do with that body part initiation again. Play with the rib cage, we played with the shoulder, we played with the arms. What I'd like you to do now is to put this into a little bit of a rhythm, so that we're going to go for 4 counts. We're going to go rib cage movement 1, 2, 3, 4. Arm 2, 3, 4. Shoulders 2, 3, 4. Rib 2, 3, 4. Shoulders 2, 3, 4. And arm 2, 3, 4. Good, not bad at all. That was pretty good, you guys. Not bad at all. Changing it up just a little bit to add a little challenge. This time, we're just going to go. We're going to go arm for 1. We're going to go arm 1, 2, rib cage 3, 4, and then we're going to take shoulders 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So there's 100 different ways. Then you could vary that in terms of rhythm, and then all of a sudden those just very easy, simple movements become dance. But when you start to play with, how can you really play around with those counts? It can become very creative, and also this idea of starting the movement and stopping it, right? So in dance, it's about that clarity of cessation and continuation of movement, and that's one of the things that in the research they are talking a lot about how ballroom has been effective, but in particular how Argentine tango has been effective, and I was curious to know, well, why was it that in particular Argentine tango was found in this case to be more effective? And it was because the movement cessation, the stopping of the movement and the going of the movement is so quick, and there's so many interesting changes that are happening, and so it's a very dynamic challenge in that way, slightly different than waltz and foxtrot in terms of ballroom dance. And the other thing with tango is that there's a little bit more improvisation. So you don't quite know if you're working with a partner what's going to happen next, and that challenge becomes very good for the nervous system in terms of Parkinson's. So that was really interesting, but you could replicate, you don't have to go out and take Argentine tango, great if you do, but you could replicate that same idea, and even doing movement improvisation exercises like this, which are, again, just moving different parts of the body, playing with your timings, playing with directions, stopping and starting the movement at various kinds of times, so that you're challenging yourself in that way. So I think in this particular study, which was ballroom dancing that I kind of mentioned, it was waltz, foxtrot, and tango for 1 hour, 2 times a week for 13 weeks. The results indicated that all participants reported improvements in walking, balance, coordination, mood, and endurance, while the control group did not improve, and in fact grew worse in disease severity. And as I just mentioned, Argentine tango proved better than traditional exercises for improving balance and functional mobility in those with PD. and a PET study demonstrated that there was increased activity in the basal ganglia when tango movements were performed to a metered and predictable beat. So we just talked about that sort of rhythmic structure being important, and why dance can then be such an asset, beyond being obviously what you just demonstrated, playful and enjoyable, and those kinds of things that also bypass some of the normal brain status quo functions. So frequent movement initiation and cessation, spontaneous directional changes, and a wide range of movement speeds. And that's really what, modern dance, contact improvisation, so many forms of dance encompass in terms of skill sets, is we're always, it's always about this like weight shifting and changing direction and understanding where we are in the space and being able to sort of regulate that. And so that's why it becomes very helpful in terms of Parkinson's. The nature of dance requires exactly what becomes missing or impaired in Parkinson's movement manifestations. Therefore, dance is an ideal form of therapy to address PD. Now you all already know these symptoms, but just to review them: postural instability, gait difficulties, impaired functional mobility, freezing of gaits, difficulty with movement initiation, turning, and bradykinesia, difficulty with attention or memory, and depression. So dance involves auditory, visual, and sensory stimulation, musical experience, musicality, social interaction, memory, motor learning, emotional perception and expression, and emotional interaction. And that kind of an enriched environment really creates a very nice kind of holistic, kind of complete form of therapy in terms of stimulating exactly the things that need to be stimulated in Parkinson's. Wanted to do another little kind of rhythmic activity with you, which is more about sound. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I think you all will be okay with it. So what we're going to do is you're just going to at your seat, you're just going to stomp for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The next time we do it, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Clap on 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Clap 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You kind of get it until we go all the way down. So we can just do that all together. Ready? Here we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Clap. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Clap. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3. And 1, 2. And 1. Good job. Yeah, that was good. That was good. So, and then you could change that up and do the reverse of that. So, of course, you could clap with the upper body 8 and stomp for 1 or whatever. That's just a very simple rhythmic kind of exercise to integrate actually upper and lower halves of the body and get the kind of that rhythmic sense going, so that you're just kind of challenging your movement on another kind of level, and hopefully tapping into other areas of the brain. One other thing I meant to mention earlier is in relation to rhythm, that my experiences, I also was a caregiver to my dad who had a severe brain injury. He didn't have Parkinson's, but he had a severe brain injury and therefore interfered with a lot of his motion and movement abilities. And through that experience, I learned that the arts, and particularly dance and rhythm, was really key in his therapy in the one sense that he had a lot of difficulty with memory. He had extreme short-term memory and really just couldn't learn exercise. He couldn't learn many new things at all and could not retain it. But one of the ways that we were able to teach him things was through rhythmic like poetry or something like that. We'd actually create something that at least had a rhythm to it. And as long as we kind of started him off on that, then he was able to continue it. So just for my own life, just have noted the power of that sense of musicality and using rhythm as an intervention to really help. There's a couple dance interventions that are out there that have been used in Parkinson's. One of them we'll do, which is called the brain dance, and it's a series of movement exercises that are based on sort of primary motor patterns. And we'll go through those. This was Andrea Gilbert coined the term brain dance because she said it also really stimulates the brain-body connections in that way. And some of the exercises were actually developed by a physical therapist, Irmgard Bartenieff, years ago, and people sort of built on her work. Andrea Gilbert has a movement center that she works with young children all the way up to many ages, older adults, and she uses the brain dance and the Bartenieff, these fundamental movement patterns, and works with people on many different levels in Seattle, Washington. Motivating Moves is actually, I think it's still an available DVD that you can find out there that also draws from these fundamental movement patterns, and was created by Janet Hamburg, who was a dance professor that worked with individuals with Parkinson's, and it was developed specifically with that in mind. So those are just two kind of resources that I've drawn from, and I will introduce you to these kind of basic movement patterns in just a minute. The other thing is, and you might have heard of it, is the Mark Morris Dance Company started doing outreach for Parkinson's some time ago in New York, and that program's going well. There's some literature on it, and my understanding of it is that they're actually doing some kind of certifications for people as well. But their program incorporates ballet, and I found this in some others as well, that they're actually using ballet bar exercises. Because of course ballet very much works on posture and alignment and strengthening the erector spinae and just strengthening the whole core of the body. It's also very challenging again in terms of rhythm and coordination and things like that. And aesthetically, and also very beautiful, and there's a lot of grace involved. So, we'd all like to kind of move as gracefully as possible through life. So, ballet has definitely been used, ballet bar exercises. Some also have incorporated jazz, and then some other programs I've noticed also incorporate these improvisational activities that we kind of just did. Some of these like movement improvisation activities. There was one study on contact improvisation that I found particularly interesting. So they were using a lot more partnered kinds of things about weight sharing and things you could do with partners to again sort of challenge movement coordination and movement ability in general. So I wanted to go through these with you. Okay, so these are the fundamental movement patterns. And again, any of these, they're kind of like basic exercises, but then you can manipulate them in 100 different ways to become more dance-like if you'd like to. And actually, one thing that's not listed up there is tactile stimulation, and it usually starts with some form of tactile stimulation. So the first thing we're going to do is actually tap on the chest, and again, it's hard to do this with the microphone. compression to the muscle. Yeah. Yeah, so just pressing or squeezing. Pressing or squeezing. And pressing or squeezing. And pressing on the legs. Pressing. And it can be rather vigorous kind of pressing and squeezing. And again, just trying to kind of bring some blood flow to the area. Last thing is brushing. So we're going to brush now. We're brushing. Just kind of a nice brisk stroke, kind of brushing off. Okay. Brushing off the and still have a pattern of breath. I know you did. This because of meditative breath motion this morning, and so you can do a number of different kinds of things with the breath pattern. Breath is one of the most fundamental patterns of movement in the human body, in that we, as we come out, we take that breath of fresh air, and it lifts the rib cage, and spine lengths and are affected as well. So it's a very internal, natural form of movement. as you do this coordination. Whole left side, closes to the right side. Whole right side, closes to the left side. And the idea with that is that again, it's the whole right side, so it's leg and arm together, and the left side coming to it, and the whole left and right side moving together as well. So it's a clarity of being able to, again, separate sides, which sometimes we lose that ability. So that's body half. The last one is cross-lateral. Cross-lateral is the normal walking pattern that we do the children do it as they crawl and as we as adults walk. So cross-lateral pattern means taking the opposite limb and connecting it to your opposite side. So if it's this, if your left arm, you're going to connect it to your right knee. So we can just kind of do an elbow to knee sort of thing of opposition, where you're just crossing the body. Yeah, so you're just taking that and bringing that over. So it's a cross kind of connection. Another way you can do it is to reach here and then reaching all the way down right across the body here. You're actually reaching through the spine and reaching to the opposite side. So it's also about spatial connectivity through the spine, reaching to the opposite side. So that's the idea of cross-lateral kind of connectivity. Cross-lateral is also seen very naturally in skipping and things like that, so that pattern's important. When you see someone try to skip and they try to skip with like two sides, like they try to do like kind of a robot kind of skip, they're missing, that understanding or ability to access cross-lateral movement. So that natural ability to cross the center line. And any of those exercises can again be done in rhythms or played around with in terms of different kinds of music, and certainly you don't have to adhere to those patterns, but that is something that you can do at home if you like. I think that's it. That's all I have there. Yeah. So I think it's time, right? It's 2:11. Thank you. I just want to thank you so much for your time.